what ways has one of your family stories helped you and your family find identity personally and collectively?
My mom would tell me stories about her time in college and her time in seeking her faith as a Christian. And she would just tell me stories on how she really started to read the Bible and understand it and grasp what it meant to be a Christian. And that gave me identity because the way she explained it I could relate to. And like the struggles she had, I could relate to. So I think in that I found some of my identity as a person, I would say. It's just learning from her mistakes or learning from things she learned as a college kid. And so I would say that really helped.
A lot of the stories that we told were often not necessarily like for, I mean, obviously each story would connect, you know, it would have some sort of connection point. And but a lot of the stories, if it was for identity, my family being my parents follow and are Christians and follow the Lord, and so a lot of the stories, if it was for a identity or moral purpose, the story came from the Bible, and so it was a biblical story, and which is very similar to people telling stories. Other stories, though, would be for as far as like for lessons and things, or for connection and pulling together to bring identity to the whole family. I think they're always little stories. I like that.
How were family stories used to help you and your family through a tough time?
Well, my dad had Alzheimer's, so probably 5 years before he died, his personality just was gone, and he had the best personality. He was funny and interesting and witty, and I mean, he could just end up owning a room, not in an obnoxious way, but just because he was fun to be around and fun to listen to. He just told the best stories. So as we shared stories about him after he died and talking to different family members, it just reminded me of what a great guy he was and what a good personality he had. And I felt that part of him that I had lost was restored. After the funeral, we came back to the house and we just started sharing stories. And that was a lot of fun, but something happened that was kind of unexpected. As I heard my cousin tell stories about my dad or my sister or my nephew or nieces, I got to experience my dad in slightly different ways through other people's perspectives.
Family stories help you or your family handle stress or trauma?
I think the family stories that resemble us coming through something hard has helped me through hard times as well, because I remember, like, we got through it, we're fine, like, that was a really hard season of life, but we're still alive and we're still happy, we still have a roof over our heads. So I think those stories help me just carry on and not
Did telling family stories help attach you to your parents?
In the ones they did, for sure. My family, or my parents, weren't the most revealing in their past. And so often you kind of, I think of moments when they finally tell that story and go, yeah, this happened to me at this time. I remember a time when I was going through something, and then, you know, a few years later, he told me this story of something that happened to him, and I was like, I could have used that, you know, back here, you know, why didn't you tell me that? And so, I think them telling these stories of what happened to them, or even retelling what happened to you, it shows vulnerability and compassion on you, as well as their level of authority. vulnerability and compassion, yet teaching. And so it's when they did tell stories, I know. But like I said, they weren't the ones to most tell about their past often. But when they did tell stories, it was from the Bible, or if we were going through something, they would oh, that reminds me of, and we would open up and read together. So those kind of stories for sure. But it was very valuable when it would bring up a story that would connect both, a Bible story and saying, kind of what that teaches or what that shows us about God, and they would say, and then they would tell this story of their life. For example, them moving up to Idaho for the first time was one story that was that I can think of that was told over and over again. Besides things like my dad jumping off the roof, or my mom getting her car taken away, or her brothers fighting, physically, and so little things like that. But then a story that was told about them moving up to Idaho. They would connect stories of God speaking and trusting God and following, like, step by step, and following and living in the Spirit in that way. And then their physical story of moving up there, and so you got to see this connection of growing myself in my knowledge of God and things like that, as well as connecting to identifying with something my parents were feeling and saying, oh, I felt that, and then something they learned and going, okay, I can understand that, and so throughout that story being told over and over again, definitely unify or connecting with them was definitely something that happened, as they told the stories.
Because I think it was the stories my parents would say to help relate to me, like throughout like different ages of my life, like whether I was going through a hard time or just something that they knew, like, oh, I went through the same thing, that would help. You just like connect to them better and relate to them better and look up to them and go to them for advice.
How did family stories unify your family?
It comes to mind unity over, like, my sister was out of the country for a year, and while we may not, a lot of things happened for her while we were gone, and then a lot of things happened with us while she was gone, and so upon reconnection, reliving the year, telling the stories of the year, connect people, so connect us back together, bring as if they didn't miss anything, you tell them to bring us together like that.
The funny stories that we have helped unify us because we would all laugh together, and that's a huge thing for our families. Like, laughing it brings us together. I think it's just our ethnicity as Armenian family, I don't know, but we all love to laugh, and it's usually my dad that will tell a funny story. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but when he does, and we all just like die of laughter, it just, I don't know, brings us back together, and then somebody else says a funny story, and then we all interact together. So I think that's how, like, the funny stories unify us, which I've noticed in our family.
What did you learn from your paper? Like, what was the biggest outcome you got from you doing this project?
Doing the
family
specific
stories.
Family stories?
Yeah.
I really liked to see how it passed on, because, like, I mean, personally, I know I'm probably going to tell, we did ours on, like I said, the story of us, I was telling you about the story of us going to Idaho, or them going to Idaho for the first time, and how they, like, trusted God and things like that, and so I'll probably tell that story to others and my kids, and obviously I'll tell my own stories too, but I think that's the point of, and in my mind, the point of family stories then is these stories are passed on, and you keep telling these stories to your kids and their kids and things like that, and so that's probably one of the stories that'll be told. But again, also I think, so I like that aspect. Sorry, before I move on, like that aspect of that it connects almost in a way. It's really cool that it connects more than just a pair. That it connects generations. In that I can continue to tell this story, and my kids and my grandkids can benefit from a story that was of a person they might not even know. You know, their great grandfather. You know, so that's really cool. I do love how cool, like, because I think that says something about us as humans. This feels like it's getting very philosophical. Not that philosophical, but that stories can impact in that way, you know, and can connect heart to heart rather than just as a lesson, you know, learn this, okay, you know, as in like a do's and do nots, you know, kind of thing, but more of a heart bonding with somebody because you are seeing a part of their heart, you know, in which, I'll go ahead and say this, which is why I think, as a Christian, I think that's super cool, because that's the point of the Bible, is God giving us divinely a window through a story into his heart and who he is, and that's so cool. So that, I think that's an exact, like, a really cool, I love finding ways in which the Bible says that we portray his, we're made in his image, and so I love always finding new ways that we portray that and that we reflect him in that way. And so while it might be not perfect, while, you know, since we are flawed, that it is a reflection of our Creator that we can connect in that way. And I think that's super cool.